Um, Yay. We should be live now. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Hi, Neo Happy. Leila, good to see you. Miss Liz, Tyler, good to see you too. And let me check very quickly if I'm live on D Live. Yes, we're live there too. Great. So today we have Matthew. And for those that don't know who Matthew is, I will tell a bit about him. So Matthew is a professional psychic and multidimensional intuitive healer, specialized in the removal of negative energetic manifestations from the body, things like entity attachments, astral parasites, implantations, and many other forms of energetic targeting that are still widely unknown by the modern day world. Matthew uses a multi-part protocol of tarot, spirit guide consultations, elements of traditional Chinese medicine, and direct transmissions of life force energy using an extraterrestrial healing modality known as scalar toning that has shown an unprecedented ability to release a variety of physical, emotional, and energetic maladies from the body. So the School of Multidimensional Intuition is his YouTube channel. You can check it out there. Everything is in the link below in the description. And I assume most of you already know who Matthew is. Sorry, I'm fussing around here with my screens. Here we go. Hi, good to see you. Well, here's the thing. I didn't know there was daylight saving, so I put everything on 7 p.m., not knowing it's actually 8 p.m. Eastern. So luckily, somehow he knew.
Yeah. Well, YouTube actually will sort of change it for you. So like on YouTube, it said 8 already. And I was like, oh, okay, it was like a time change. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So for us, it's always a month or 2 months later. It's so strange. So I'm so glad that went well, because usually it always, twice a year, I screw it up because there's the winter and the summertime. So yeah. Hi, Scott. Good to see you. And Miriam. So yeah. And also Monday, we were supposed to go live, but then 2 hours ahead, I had food poisoning.
Me too.
I mean,
Me too.
and you had it
for real. It's been a decade since I had anything like that. So we were like both sitting there going like right around the same time. For real. So it's all good.
Yeah, so I guess accidents happens, but at any case, it all went well now. So here we are, and today we're going to be talking about. Well, let's start and talk where it all started for you. I obviously know that you know Eric Rains, who was the one who I began with. My healing began with him, actually. My actually proper healing, and I guess for you it was the same, right?
Actually, yes. To be honest with you, yeah. Eric, and who knows? Maybe he'll find this. Usually, his like ears will start itching as soon as we start talking about him. But, and then I'll hear from him later. But yeah, I kind of keyed into this sort of whole group and this sort of strange timeline right around 2000. I think it was 2015 when Eric and I met at a conference in Mount Shasta, which a lot of people within the sort of our sort of soul family all kind of came to that thing. It was a secret space program conference in 2015. And yeah, actually, Eric was one of the people that sparked the beginning of my journey. I had a clearing from him at that event that literally changed the course of my life. So a lot of us here had a little activation or a little hand. He sort of had a hand in a lot of our timeline. So yeah.
That's Thanks, so Eric. Interesting, because I watched at the time that event online, and I actually met him like on the phone in 2017, and for me it sparked the same thing. So that's interesting to know, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, continue from there, because you said it sparked from there, but I guess
yeah, I'll kind of tell you the story, and some of the people that are watching will cringe because they've heard this like a million times, but it's a thing that we tell every single time we do this. And I am one of those people that I believe I had sort of a contract to activate at a certain stage of my life, because prior to 2015, I was doing a very normal, job in a very normal part of life. I was working in mental health for veterans, primarily at that time, working at a veterans treatment center. And the summer, or I would say July of that year, just before I went to that conference, I think it was in June, that year, I had a crazy crown chakra opening, and it was kind of one of those events where I was actually doing an event at work. It was a homeless outreach sort of thing that was happening during the day, and I remember walking through the crowd of people. And honestly, I will be real. I just didn't want to go to work. I was really bored. I was really over it, and I was walking through this outdoor field. Some people are going to get their own internalized slideshow. You can just look at my left eye and you'll get a version of it in your own mind, a very visual one. I was walking through this outdoor area about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was these women at this tent that were doing services for some of the people there. And she just looked at me and was like, "How would you like an energy blessing?" And I was like, okay. I was just like, all right, sure. And I sat down on this little chair, and a woman put her hands on my head just like this, and she did a prayer. And honestly, within about 5 minutes, some weird thing just occurred. I felt a strange feeling at the top of my head, and within 60 days of that moment, my entire life had changed. Everything about me, my body started changing, my face started changing. I got very ill. I had all kinds of sickness and hallucinations. I started getting, meetings with weird beings and guides showing up in my life. I wish it was the glorious version of it. I wish I could say, they showed up in the Anshar bus and like drove me off over like to the moon, and we had a meeting with, like the Blue Avians, but it was nothing like that. I lost my mind for about 2 years after that point. Absolutely. I was talking to animals and trees and wandering around places. I was not a good version. I was not a cool version of like the awakening being. I was very weak.
You would have been diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Yes. Honestly, at that stage of my life, I was working in mental health treatment. I had a whole caseload. I had a caseload of clients that was like 20 individuals long. And it was one of those things where I was like, who do I tell? What do I say about this? There's beings showing up in my life, literally in the middle of the night. They would be standing in the corner of my room, and I'm like, what do I do about this? And, there was nobody to tell, but it literally opened the door to a huge change in my life. And I guess here we are, several years, after that, and it's in a totally different timeline. But yeah, it started a chain of events that fundamentally altered the path of my life. And I will pause after this, because watch out, I'll go on a long tangent with you. But I believe that I am a product of what we call the soul unbraiding, or a walk-in event, where another version, another energy, another identity in some cases, although it's still me, like this fundamental chemical and, electrochemical change takes place in the body. And so that's kind of how I got here, literally a sudden like snap. And so right after that, I would say a couple of years later in 2017, after a bunch of crazy events, which I can go into detail if you would like, I was guided and given the opportunity, and I took it. And I had this moment where I put all my things on the curb. I left my marriage at the time. I left my job at the time. I left everything that I owned literally in this world. I took a few things in my car, and I literally drove away.
No way.
It was over. But it's not like I went that far. I just went to Los Angeles, which was about 200 or so miles north of me. And so yeah, that was kind of how I started.
If you do that here, you're out of the country, but yeah.
Actually, I have heard a statement similar to that. People say that in Europe, people think 100 miles is a long distance, whereas in America, people think 100 years is a long time. And it's like there's a huge difference between this. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yes. Yes, because it's funny, because I obviously over the past years I've been talking with so many Americans, and they pretty much live in their cars because of the distances, and everything is by car. Here, everything is by bike, or you just walk, right? And when you go by car, and it is 200 miles, we're in Germany, or Paris is like 5 hours drive, so, but it's like, it's so different. And I have no imagination of how that would be in the US, because for you guys, it's different.
Tons of driving, all kinds of distance, all kinds of randomness. It's
And then
probably
it's still
totally
close
different.
by for you guys, right? For
Oh
us, it's
yeah,
really
totally.
far. If you go like 100 miles, like, no, we don't see family as much. But for you guys, it's just so normal. Just hop in the car and go. It's like, and so yeah, it's but yeah, so you went to Los Angeles.
I
Why
did.
there?
That's a really, really good question because for most of my life, I hated LA. I was prior to the mental health treatment kind of timeline for me, I was in a band for many years. It was the only thing that I did, tours and albums and all that. Not that it went anywhere, but it was the literal sum total of my life prior to that. And even as a I can't say the word musician. There we go. It was a place that I hated. I hated Los Angeles. It felt like chaos. It felt dirty. It felt weird. And so what happened for me was I actually met a person at that stage of the journey at a conference called Conscious Life Expo, which a lot of people here know about. I've actually been there several times. I presented there in 2020. Unfortunately, they won't talk to me now, but we did have a little bit of a run there. But I actually went out there to kind of meet a friend who I had met at that conference, who it was one of those freak occurrences in this life where someone will meet you or let's say you will meet an individual and they'll say, I'm a psychic, I'm this, and you will look at them and you will go, oh yeah, you are. Oh my God. And so I had an experience where this older woman just looked at me at this conference and was like, you're a psychic. Yes, you are. And I was like, what? Huh? This whole spiel, and it, like, at the time I did not realize what was happening, but what I realized it was that we had a past life engagement. We had a past life interaction, and she had recognized me from another timeline. And just that moment alone fundamentally altered the path of my life, because when I left San Diego, not knowing anywhere to go, not knowing what to do, I knew for a fact, I was like, the previous stage of my life was over. It was literally ended. There was all kinds of beings and things. There was an afternoon where I was standing in my backyard doing qigong, which was the only thing I could do at that stage of my journey to stay sane. And there was beings on all sides of me, one on the right, one on the left, one in front of me, a whole host of energies. I remember looking up at the sky and seeing the face of a lion, and I was completely sober. And it's like, who do you tell? How could I talk about this? There was one day in that journey where I knew in that moment, it was literally offered to me, and they were like, walk away from everything. You can put this part of your life down, put it aside. You have a mission. It is time to remember. And it sounds cheesy because a lot of people have heard me say this. I've talked about it in a lot of talks, but I literally was on my hands and knees in my backyard crying, literally tears streaming down my face. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. I don't even know what it is. And I really didn't. I was like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'll do it. And my wife at the time came outside and she looked at me and she was like,
are you nuts?
No, she was like, so what do you want for dinner? And I was like, and somehow I knew in that moment, it was like a weird moment. And I was like, yep.
Out of here.
Boom. And within like a month, it was over. And I just took off. And anyway, I spent some time with that woman. And she really didn't teach me anything. What I believe she did is something that a lot of people experience in this life. They will activate an element or a strand, a frequency of energy within you, because within 2 months of that time, this was actually July 17th of 2017. I know everyone gets weird about the 17s, go crazy if you like. It means nothing literally. But anyway, sorry to throw that in there. It only means what we add to it, everyone. 17 is dead. But anyway, that said, on July 17th of 2017, I just started doing this thing that I'm doing now. It was like a switch turned on in my life.
Wow.
And suddenly I'm like, okay, now I'm doing this thing. Now I'm doing healing and psychic work. And it was as if I remembered something. So it was literally true what they had told me. But
I hear that a lot, actually. And also the whole thing back to basics, I think it's kind of necessary to do that, because you literally have to start back from basic to this new chapter or new you, right? Because otherwise, you have to let go of everything, right? Unless you really have a good relationship where you both grow in that. But apparently that was not the case, right?
Yeah.
So
I think sorry to cut you off. I think it's a bit different for everyone that will go through an activation stage in this life. For some of us, it will be at the end of like a relationship or a big period in our life. Other people will know it's coming as children and they'll experience some sort of a fundamental change. Other people will activate at different stages of the journey. I know that for me, looking back on it and having the experiences that I had, it was for me, it was, to get technical, which is always a label that we put on things, but I had a soul unbraiding. And there was in that chapter of like discovery and activation, I met a person, and I just did a show with him recently. His name is Sean Bond. I met this individual. He's somebody you could, oh man, you would love to talk to him on your show. Very interesting individual. But I was seeking guidance from healers and psychics, trying to figure out what had happened to me, why I was losing my mind. And I had already known this in a weird way. I was like, in my heart and mind, I knew that some sort of energy had entered my body, that another version of me had started. And I went to go see this one guy, and it was like, I couldn't even get a session with him. It was hard to talk to. And I was like, finally, I got him on Zoom, and he wasn't even on camera. And he was all, oh yeah, you had a future self integration. And it was like, in that moment, I knew it. I was like, yes, it is. It was the future self, the future version of me connected with Matthew in the physical body. And I just sat there and I was like, I know. And it was like people came through and gave me little pieces of myself. Eric was a huge one that year. Eric showed up and was like, here, let me show you this, implant removal process. And to be very technical, he literally removed a piece of energy. It's a thing that a lot of people have. It's a band that will sit in between the heart chakra and the throat chakra, and it'll pinch off our energy. It'll slow down the kundalini and chakra activity in the body. And it was like, as soon as he moved that out, only a couple months later, then I went to the next stage and then the next stage. And so
that went for me a bit different, because for me it was like in my ankles, and then it was in the back, and then over my head, and I had loads of anxiety. So when he took that away, I've never felt any, it was like all the chains came off. I never felt that free in my life. My eyes changed. He said, look in the mirror. I looked in the mirror. I was like, my eyes were completely different. But then I still had to do a whole journey of healing. So, I went back and forth and back and forth. But what you said about people, that you encounter, and then all of a sudden something activates. I call these people are like portals, and it's something actually that I learned from Matthias Di Stefano, because he said, I'm a portal because as soon as you encounter me, you start to remember. And there are many people, like in the Mayan astrology, I'm a portal, a 222. And I didn't understand what that was until Matthias Di Stefano was talking about it, and I'm like, that makes so much sense, because sometimes I encounter people and then all of a sudden something happens to them, and they get like, I don't know, like something opens up. But I have the same with other people, and I've encountered that like several times now. Obviously not as drastic and dramatic as you, but I still hope so. Although don't want to go nuts, but I guess everybody has these different what is meant for them, because there's people that just go boom like that, and there's people that go in stages, right? I'm one of those stages thing, and it takes a long time. 52, I'm still not there, but
Oh, see, you're doing really good for that age though, because honestly, no one ever knows my age either. And I would have thought you were 40 or 41, maybe at the oldest. So that's a really good sign. That is also a sign that you have activated key elements of your DNA that will fundamentally alter your appearance. It will reverse age you. It will literally change the sort of energy signature of you and create a whole new, we could say, countenance, if you want to go there. But that's a real thing. Anyway.
That's amazing, because I did have that, and then I indeed reversed my age as well, like by 10 years. But then in the past year, so much happened. I gained the 10 years again, but whatever, I know that goes back and forth, but and it's for everybody like that, right? So how did you integrate then all the other things, like because you then learned about these entity removal from air grains?
I want to, here, how did that actually happen? This is always kind of a cringe moment for some individuals, because they'll be like, well, you must have taken some class, you must have gone to something, you must have learned from someone. I have to be real. There were a lot of people that helped me out on this journey and modeled a process for me, meaning that they showed me, here's how you do this, here's how you do that. But when it comes to the subject matter, when it comes to the way in which I discern and kind of disseminate information about energy centers and channels in the body, I have to be honest with people. I do not know where it comes. Well, I do know where it comes from, but it does not come from a class. It doesn't come from a website. It doesn't come from a book. What I learned at a later stage of this journey was that for what many of us we call the quote unquote higher self, is actually a collection of many versions of us that have existed on a number of different timelines that will lend their consciousness toward one physical being in certain stages of the life cycle. And so for me, it was a thing that I literally just turned on. And within a couple of years, I was like, no, I know it. It wasn't even me going, I know about this. It was like people would ask me stuff and I would meet with people and boom, this thing would occur. I would turn to the left and look up and it's like, there's the information. There's the stuff. And it actually brings us back to, I think, one of the reasons why you and I are talking today, and you know, whoever's watching out there is going to experience a little bit of this. One of the things we're called to do on a collective level, this might be me opening like a can of worms here. Sorry if I do that. We are called to move our assemblage point. Are you familiar with the assemblage point on the energy body?
No.
Okay, so this is something that is relatively new to me, but in terminology, but something that is universal to every living ensouled being. You have a number of connection points, what we might call nodes or openings to the energy body. One of the most notable and primary ones is often located in the back, a little bit underneath your neck, in between your shoulder blades from right or left. It's usually this little area, some people call it, where the astral cord like connects to the body. And yes, there are others, because everyone gets weird when they're like, that's not the only one. You're right, it's not the only one. There are several, but we have an assemblage point that exists. It's like an energy contact point in the back of the human body. And for many of us, one of our journeys here as humans who are awakening, who are coming to understand our multidimensional nature, is learning to move the assemblage point and learning to change your state of spiritual and physical awareness. And so how do we move it? It's literally by intention, by talking about it. And what happens is, as we learn to move this point of energetic contact in the body, we move, excuse me, farther away from third density consciousness and more toward what we might call, which is just, it's kind of a funny term now, fourth density or the fourth dimensional layer of consciousness, which is where we move outside of time. We move outside of our physical kind of shell. And so the assemblage point, I think, is honestly one of the things that we're called to discuss here and work with today. And so everyone that's watching, you will probably start feeling a little point, and I know you're going to feel it as well as we're talking, a little point in your back that will kind of swirl and move, and it's already there. I can feel it on you. But anyway, before I go on a tangent, for me, I think a lot of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is that I had a movement of this energetic point in the body that helped me connect with spiritual energy on a different level. And not that it's different from anyone else, because everybody has it, but it's like the way that we get there, like you were saying, with key holders or people that will activate us, is by discussing it and making ourselves aware of it. And so anyway, I'll pause there. I know that was
I think we just activated somebody that came in the chat randomly. He says, I randomly click on your video and you say 222. I've been seeing 3 to 4 digits of that number 2 for months now. Me too. Nice. Only in time to the point, it's beyond coincidence. And now you say it. Yes, I did, because you know I am a 222, so maybe I am your portal right here, and so you need to learn here. That's so nice. Welcome, Androv. But yeah, it's still interesting, because you know these are the things. Nothing is coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. When you are called to click on something, obviously watch out for the AI, because they tend to do that same thing, but you have to come from your intuition. If it comes from your intuition and you do it, then you know sometimes all of a sudden you get this information and you're like, wait, what? You know, so I guess that's just what happened to Androv here. Yeah, these numbers can change as well. There are periods you see other numbers. Lately, this whole week, every day I look at the clock. We have the 24-hour clock. At 22:22, I looked at the clock every day. It was amazing. And yeah, it's the strangest thing. So yeah.
It's a really cool confirmation from spirit is what I call those. And I guess to make it even weirder, people come to me every day with similar things and like, oh, there's this sequence of numbers or this, you know, this sort of code or whatever it is. And the fun thing about that, I know everyone has their own version of like the series of numbers, whether it's 222, 11, 11, 17, you know, whatever the series of numbers that you want to attach to it. The fun thing about it, as far as I can tell, is that it's uniquely individual for each person that receives it, meaning that for you, it's going to signal one thing. For the individuals in the chat, it's going to be a whole nother thing. For me, I guess we'll make it awkward. I'm so not one of the numbers kind of pattern people. I don't know why. I just never have been. Sometimes I feel silly because I'm like, oh, it's 11:11 again. It's like,
Well,
okay.
I don't look it up either. I just it's been doing, I had it for years now, right? It's just that now I don't know, somehow it shifts sometimes, and then all of a sudden it becomes more conscious. I don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
yeah,
It's more, it's like you see it and you know it and it's
yeah.
fine. And the next day again and again and again and again. And you're like, okay, I got it. you know. Well, before you would be all enthusiastic about it, but it's now it becomes it's normal, right?
Totally.
But also it's normal because it comes from a different dimension, so to speak, as in you approach it differently now.
Totally. Well, here's the thing. I will just add this, and it might be a strange, off ramp from what like we were talking about, but a lot of people will come to me trying to understand the nature of spiritual guides, the nature of energies that are around them. How do we communicate with our guides? How do we know when they're telling us something? How do I know if that's one of my guides or if that's me in my head just having a conversation? And one
Or
of
an
the most
entity.
basic, or an entity, totally.
Been there, yeah.
One of the most basic ways in which our guides and the hierarchy of beings and the higher self communicate with us is through the elements of symbology and the synchronistic patterns that occur in our world. It's one of the most basic ways in which people can start to tune into spiritual guidance. As we move through and past and begin to discern and feel those things, you will start to have an ongoing internalized conversation that takes place in the head, which is a thing that's also really, really easy to kind of, influence and change. And so it's a little bit different for everyone. But I say this in live streams, and I will continue to say it for a lot of you guys that are watching right now, and you're going to get a sample of it as I'm talking in your own way pertaining to your own life. A lot of the thought forms and the processes that you will go through in your mind, a lot of that stuff at this stage of the game is brought to us rather than you thinking you're having a conversation in your head. You'll think, I don't know, I feel like I'm going to click on this video. I don't know why. I just saw it. In many cases, that's them going, hey, maybe you should click on this thing. And we'll be like, I think I want to watch this person's video, and you'll click on it. And that's the process of you following that spiritual guidance. So
I had it once with Peter Slattery. I had an interview with him, I remember. And then it was morning, and all of a sudden something happened, and all of a sudden I connected dots, and it went so fast. I guess that's what everybody calls downloads. And so, I don't have all these labels because, I don't know. I just let it go. And I started writing like crazy. And all of a sudden I connected so many dots, and it went on for about 2 hours. Yeah. And then I stopped, and I was exhausting, but at the same time, I didn't want to stop because it was so much information that my brain couldn't really, it came in, but at the same time, I couldn't, like anchor it yet. You know what I mean? So I start writing like crazy. And now if I look at it, it's all gibberish, right? So it goes faster than you can keep up with when that happens.
Yeah, that's that multidimensional flow state. And just, if anyone wants to figure out technically, how does that happen? There's a real technical interaction that takes place with the energy body that will allow those things to start to flow. For those of you trying to understand the chakra system, which is probably one of the most active elements of the energy body. It's not the only one, but the crown chakra will open, and it acts very much like a radio transmitter. It will interact with the massive infrastructure of energy centers around the head and the neck, and that will start that multidimensional transmission process where you'll just start writing, or you'll start talking, or like whatever the medium is for you, you'll start doing it. And I guess I'm going to make it even weirder for some of the people that are watching. Who knows whether there's 10 or 20 or 100, it doesn't matter. Some of you guys that are perceiving the energy that's received in this interaction today is actually going to kick off a wave of inspiration, a wave of internal activity that's going to lead you to another stage of understanding of yourself. It's universal. And I think that's one of the reasons why I don't do very many shows. Like it's a weird thing. People either don't ask me or I'm not a part of that. And I have come to understand that it is because there's a particular type of transmission that occurs when I go live or talk to people that can only take place in that now moment. And so the cool thing is it's contained within the recording. So anyone that watches it later is also going to receive it. But then I realize this is me twisting off on another off ramp here, but that's because the primary mission for a lot of us on Earth right now is to activate your own version of psychic and multidimensional healing abilities. In fact, if you are one of the people on Earth who ends up hearing that, you have a purpose within that realm. You have a purpose within this awakening group of humans. And so, anyway, I think that's why we're here today.
Then you started. So you did the whole entity thing, and then you learn more about what was that? Well, you did tarot. You combined.
Yeah, tarot. That's been a really weird thing for me. That's another thing that I never actually learned. Because it was wild because I'm about to do a third tarot class in May, which is awkward for a person who never took a tarot class or read a tarot book. I don't.
When did you start with it? Because I started like I think a 1.5 years ago, all of a sudden, and I never looked at it. And all of a sudden, I watched all these videos, and I still don't understand anything of it. I don't have even a deck, but I guess if you do
you'll have one soon. You'll have one soon. I will say this. I was first given a tarot deck in December. Honestly, let's make it even weirder. Right before December 21st of 2012. I had it was like a pre-awakening in my life. It sounds so crazy, but it was like a crack developed in the top of my head in December of 2012. And I lost my mind for about 2 months. And in that period of time, I went and stayed with my wife at the time's family in Oregon. And her grandmother was like, here's a deck of cards. And I was like, what is this? Tarot? What? And I didn't even know anything about it. I was raised in a super fundamental religious family that was taught that that's evil. You should never, ever do that. And for some reason, I was mystified by them. I didn't know what to do with them. And what happened was in 2013, I started doing readings for myself. But when I say readings, it was so basic. I would pull one card and click on all these websites and like, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? I don't know what the hell that means. And what happened was in 2013, I was about to make a really crazy decision. My marriage was going weird. I was just doing things that people do when things are going sour in their life. They make weird decisions. And at the time, I did a reading on like, should I do this thing? And I was told with specificity that if I went forward with it, it would be an utter disaster, that it would be horrible. And I took that and I was like, oh, whatever. And I did it. I just went with it. And what happened? A layer of disaster that just wrecked my life. I saw it affect people around me. And what happened was it was so specific from what I had read in that it was like the real first tarot reading I ever did for myself, where I really looked at everything. And it was so true that it freaked me out. And you didn't understand the card, so you did it purely intuitively. Well, what I was doing at that stage in 2013, I would pull a set of cards and I would look up their meanings from people online. I would just read like, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? Right. And so in the course of me doing it that way, a series of events was forecasted in my life that led to utter ruin. And so after that moment, I put them down and I was like, whoa, I'm not going to screw with that again. No way, man. That was a bad idea. I'm never going there again, let alone what they told me was true. It was literally true. Wow. And I put it down until summer of 2017. And I didn't even have tarot cards at that time. But this woman that was sort of helping me and let me stay at her house was like, here, like, you're going to need this. And I was like, I don't know how to read tarot. I don't know anything about it. And so I sat with her for maybe 2 hours at one point, and I took a little notepad and I would pull out cards and I'd be like, so what does this mean? And she would give me 2 or 3 words and I wrote them down on this little pad of paper and I lost it instantly. It was gone within a week. And it was wild because at that stage of the journey, she was like, don't worry, you'll know. Don't worry, you'll know. And I was like, no, I won't. And sure enough, summer of 2017, I tried to get a job at a psychic shop in Los Angeles because she was like, I used to work there. You can work there. And I was like, really? I don't know anything. And I went in there, and without knowing anything, I did this reading and a healing on the owner, and she hired me on the spot, like instantly was like, yes,
No way.
you're coming. And I was like, what? Okay, I guess I did something right. And so for me, once again, it was like a light turned on, and I would go this way, I would connect with something over here, and then boom, I would just start doing a thing. And so
But that's it,
yeah.
right? Because it's the affirmation you get from others. Because I'm by myself, right? I don't even have a social life because I spent like 27 years with agoraphobia. So
Oh,
I
really?
haven't been in
Oh,
society at all. But when you do have these conflicts, because I get these things, but I constantly doubt myself. But if you don't have any feedback, then how will you know? Right.
right.
And so I accidentally discovered things that way because I was talking with people online, like looking for, I do BQH, right? The
Oh, right. Oh,
quantum
yeah, yeah,
hypnosis. And so I do these sessions. And then when they talk, I literally see everything that they see. And I was like, am I just rich in imagination? But it's so detailed. And so at a certain point, I figured, well, let me ask. And every single time was spot on
yeah.
to in the details. And so now I start actually seeing the things before they even say it, right? Completely. I just get instantly that. And I'm like, whoa, and so that's now coming up because,
Yeah,
I'm more social. Well, obviously, because uh,
totally.
I do these sessions. But yeah, and so I'm thinking like the fact that you were so doubting yourself, like, oh yeah, I don't even know what I'm doing. But it just takes that one person that says, yes, you got it, right?
Actually, it really did. I will always be very, very grateful to her. I don't know where she is now. It was a momentary intersection in this life. Someone gives you a key, and then boom, like we both went on our separate ways. But I will be honest with you, because a lot of other people have said this about me as well. I strive in this life to recognize those that are legitimate and real and authentic in their path. I think that by allowing ourselves to see ourselves in the eyes of another, by noticing, like, you know what, you're good at this, you can do this, you're for real. I think that helps people come to a new understanding of themselves. And honestly, it's been kind of the one of the fundamentals of the work that we've been doing over the past year or so with the stuff that I do now. In that now it's all about training people and getting them ready and figuring out what are you actually good at? What are you capable of doing? What's your sort of predetermined skill, which is very much like, I always make this weird analogy, or maybe it's a metaphor, I'm not sure, but it's very much like choosing a character in a video game. And at a certain stage of the journey in that video game, you're going to unlock abilities, you're going to unlock pieces of yourself. And I would like to think that my mission at this stage is helping people unlock that version of them. So
Yeah,
hopefully
definitely. I can totally see that. Yeah. It's amazing how that works. Somebody asked for your
yes.
was it the website, Dennis? Because I put it indeed in the description, but I just saw that I didn't finish the link.
Oh, it's
So
okay. It's
yeah,
rememberyourmission.com.
remember your
Rememberyourmission.com.
okay.
Or you can go to YouTube and look at the School of Multidimensional Intuition, which is a mouthful. I should change the URL. It's so long, but yeah, you can go to School of
Yeah.
Multidimensional Intuition on YouTube or rememberyourmission.com. Totally.
Okay, I put it just in the chat. I didn't even I will adjust that later. Sorry. But so okay, so then you combine this tarot and so you got a really broad knowledge now with all sorts of healing modalities and things that you can add to help people. I think that's amazing.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I just started kind of, right? But obviously, like I
I did
said, it's
too.
well,
But yeah.
yeah, but it can go really fast, right? Once you get on your way. And obviously for me, the disadvantage was that I didn't have like personal contact with people. I literally everybody I know lives in the US,
Yeah.
right? Because I started my channel in 1st January 2020. And so from there I came into the world of people, so to speak, and as a
Cool.
challenge to begin with. But I do now see that it's very important to know people and to get around people in order to get activated. And yeah, and that's the part I'm actually literally missing, right?
Yeah.
So I'm actually planning on moving away.
Oh, really? Where are you going to move to?
Um, well, I actually didn't want to say, but having in my mind to move to Mexico.
Oh, really? Whoa. Oh, that's a very popular place right now, just so you know, which
Yeah, I've
honestly
been
will be
talking
very,
to.
very good for you. Just so you know, sorry to bring tarot into it, but I love to have people say a thing and then I'm like, what does it look like? Boom. And just so you know, you have a Queen of Swords in Mexico, which means that it'll be very important the nature through which you communicate yourself during that process. It could even mean that there's an assignment or a chapter of becoming, a transmission that will occur for you. So just in case you're able to really make that happen.
Well, I can tell you the one thing after the other happens, and I encountered people, and so there is uh James Gilliland's brother. I
Uh,
didn't know he lived there. Turns out he lives there for a long time already, and he's a healer as well. And so I encountered him, talked to him, and I was the week before that. I was actually searching what country do I want to live because it's still free. And I thought, well, best is to be, you know, a country that's governed by a drugs cartel than one by the World Economic Forum cartel, right? And so I thought, well, no, but all kidding aside, I thought, well, it's the only country literally free with the whole COVID rules and all that. And I thought, well, and then one after the other, and I counter all these things, and I'm like, okay, that's it. So now I'm on that path, like mindset to
I pray that you do. That's a very popular destination for a lot of people right now. I pray that you
that's
will,
it.
especially coming from multiple years of agoraphobic energy, which is a thing. And I honestly, I'm going to be real with you. I'm a little bit like that. I don't really go anywhere. Everyone that I talk to is like this on Zoom, and it's all I do every day is literally on Zoom. So I feel you on that. I have very little contact with the outside world unless I go to a conference or an event. So
Right. Yeah. And it's not that far from the border where I'm planning, which is Puerto Vallarta,
oh,
that
nice. Oh, that's a
area.
good area.
Yeah, because there's a lot of holistic clinics there too,
Totally.
apparently. But I'm still, it's still only an idea. Well, no, I'm just,
I pray that you'll do it. I pray that you do for real.
well, actually, it's not an idea. I just want to go now. Ever since this week, I decided, no, I have to, right? Because it's getting really, really, um, well, uncomfortable here, but
Yeah.
also indeed with the in mind that mission, right? And I just instantly felt like, oh, that's it, I need to be there, because I wanted to go to Bali, but you can't go to Bali without the.
That's
Yeah,
another popular destination. Oh, really? So interesting.
well, yeah, I'm half Indonesian, so my dad was born in Indonesia,
Oh,
but
okay.
and so
Wow.
in Bali I did a lot of healings there too. And so I thought, I want to go there. It's like it feels like my home too.
Oh,
But
nice.
you can't enter anymore in Indonesia without the thingy. So I thought, oh my God, then what's closest to that? And then I get these pictures from that area, and it's like, holy, that actually looks very similar. And so instantly I was drawn to that. And yeah, it all came actually, and it's not that far from America. So who knows? Then finally I can visit
Totally. I'm
wherever.
sure the borders will be wildly open as they are once again, like for better or worse. It's like there's no restrictions on that currently. Millions of people are rolling through. So who knows? Maybe you could. I honestly pray that you will. I think that in the coming 3 to 5 years, for a lot of us on the earth plane, myself included, there's a tremendous amount of movement for those that have lent their consciousness and their sort of energy to the process of awakening to the dimensional shift that's taking place. We're going to be guided to new destinations, new locations. We're going to be brought into new elements of ourselves that could only take place, could only activate when we bring ourselves out of the comfort zone of our familiar environment, which was one of the things for me. I know it's well known by a lot of other people, but when I was able to leave San Diego, California, which is where I kind of was born and lived for most of my life, coincidentally, we would walk outside of our house and look over to the left, and there was can't say the word, Mexico. There we go. Right there. I mean, literally, I could look outside the door and see Mexico every single day. And so anyway, going back to the whole idea, I think a lot of us are going to be called to relocate, to move to different areas, very much like the grid working process where your frequency will be needed elsewhere. I bet there's a bunch of people probably in the chat that will see this that will also acknowledge that they're being guided to move to another place as well.
Yeah, there's
Very
one
common.
that says, I'm moving back to Montana. Actually, there's somebody, Brent, says, question, if we circle back to the assemblage point, can you please speak more about moving it and your understanding of some functions? I've
Totally.
been working with it for a while in regards to reality shift. Interesting. I read that book from Reality Transurfing. Yeah.
Yeah, I will mention that. So first off, I want to give a little bit of just an open disclaimer. I have been feeling the assemblage point for most of my life, but only this year, only within the last 3 months, did someone come into my life and explain to me exactly what it was. And it was like one of those keys that was given to me, and boom, like, whoa, oh my God, that's what we're doing. And so the assemblage point is one of many connections that you will have to your astral body, to what they call in certain literature the luminous egg or the torus field. It's like, you can imagine, it's like a node point where energy comes in and out. And so one of our journeys in this life is learning to move it to an appropriate place so that we can exit what we call third density consciousness and move into, whatever the next stage is. I hate adding numbers to it, fourth, fifth, sixth, it doesn't matter. Those are human creations meant to kind of help us understand a higher level of consciousness. But for many of us, the journey is to move it to the left, to move it upward. As we move it down, as you can imagine, you would go into a lower astral realm or astral state, lower vibration. But as we move it upward and often to the left, we tend to leave behind the previous stage of identity. And for me, it was a key moment in understanding what that was, because it's a thing that I have been interacting with every day since the moment I started doing this work in really 2016, when I first started doing clearings. It was like, for some reason, I would feel this little feeling behind my left shoulder blade in my back. And it wasn't painful, but it was like a weird swirly little feeling. And it was like, I would somehow bring my mind to it. And it's like, I'll turn my head and look up over the left shoulder, and you will connect, or I will connect with a non-physical energy. And so a lot of people will find that their attention will get drawn to the right or to the left. They'll get drawn to a point of energy. And so, in the literature that I've read about it, it's a thing that is moved by intention alone. And yet at the same time, a lot of the shamans in the old world, coincidentally in Mexico, would actually strike an individual on the back and jar the energy body and sort of move it around, which is a thing, coincidentally, as soon as I read about it, started happening organically on an astral level. In the sessions that I do now, it's a thing that we will literally, boom, jar the energy body and it will shake the self up. And what happens is it alters the level to which you perceive reality. It alters your spiritual and energetic awareness. And trust me, there's many other ways to do it. That's not the only one. It's not only about moving your assemblage point. There's a whole kind of collection of energies that will need to take place and move and activate within the energy system to facilitate higher knowledge or things that you already knew, the remembrance of things that you used to be. But right now for me, and it's probably because I'm just now learning to work with it, I'm not a big pro on this. I'm very, very new with working with that point alone from a technical level, but from an internal level, it's something that I've been interacting with forever. And so I don't know if that answers a question or gives anyone any more info, but for me, the best source of guidance on this has been through the books of Carlos Castaneda.
Oh, I heard of him. Yeah.
Carlos Castaneda. Anyone out there can check it out. You can just go on a weird wormhole. People have been offering me those books for years in my life. And then someone told me about it like 2 months ago. And I was like, boom. And I
Wasn't
picked
he
it
the
up.
guy that had also like contact with UFOs and stuff?
All sorts of strange beings, both organic and non-organic. And what I believe it is it is one of the dissemination points for true spiritual knowledge. When people talk about what we would call the mystery school education, because that's a thing that people come to me about, and they're like, I want to understand my, like the mystery schools. Let's be real. It's never a place that you go. It is not a location. It is a process of internal remembrance and re-education of the many versions of you that you've been throughout all of these life cycles. And so the mystery school process is really a path of discovery of the self that takes place internally. It takes place socially. It takes place in moments like this, when a random person on a live stream says, hey, I read this book and I work with this part of energy in the body, and somebody out there will it'll spark their consciousness, and they'll go down their own little wormhole pattern of figuring out what that is. And that's why it's very individual for each and every person. And so I might be obsessed with the assemblage point right now. You'll catch me in 2 months and I'll be like, oh yeah, anyway, that's old news. Now we're on this whole other thing. So, that's just kind of the stage in which we're at, but it's a really
yeah,
good
and there's so much and it all overlaps each other as well, right?
yeah.
So, and you just pick out what you use most anyway. So, and there's the other thing that oh, I can't remember what it's called. Sorry, it's the extraterrestrial thing.
Yeah.
What was it?
Yeah. There are many of them.
No, it was, wait, hang on. Let me see. It is, oh, right. It's this, oh, of course, a scalar toning.
Oh yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That is the primary method. Well, let's be real. It's man, this will be fun one. It's kind of changing. The process of scalar toning for me is in a state of evolution. But what is scalar toning? Scalar toning is really a label that I use to describe the process of sending multidimensional energy between two bodies or between two states of being auditorially. And it doesn't matter if you hear it or not. It's an auditory tone that is emitted by the body. And what we found out, or what I've discovered in my own work, is that it's what we would call one of the fourth density training wheels for sending non-physical energy. It's a tone that you will create with the human voice, which has no note. It's not about an arpeggio. It's not about singing a song. It's about initiating a physical vibration in the body with a very particular type of intention that allows it to be felt and reached by anyone in the world. And let's get even more specific, anyone in space or time. Now, for those of you guys that are out there wondering, okay, well, what is scalar energy? What does that actually mean? Scalar energy, as far as I can tell, was first observed by a man named William Clerk Maxwell sometime in the 1800s. Don't quote me on the date, but him and another number of other people observed that there was a wavelength of energy that was contained within nature that could be generated technologically, could also be generated by the human body under certain conditions, that had an ability to penetrate energies anywhere. And I think there was somehow Tesla measured it sometime in the 1800s as well. And they were able to send a scalar wavelength literally across the world. It was a thing that would not lose integrity. Yes. It would not lose tone. And so scalar energy is a thing that exists in nature. And it's a thing that we're able to generate with the human body. So I use it as a means to open up chakras and meridians. And also, if you want to get technical, organs, like the consciousness of your organs are changing right now as we go through the fourth density shift. We're developing and activating chakras within the organs themselves. And so scalar toning allows us to reach a person in a very effective way. But I have to be real, you don't actually have to make the sound. It's really a training wheel for sending energy, whether it's telepathically or non-physically. But I came about it, and please feel free to interrupt me if I'm going on too long of a rant here, but I came about the process of scalar toning. A lot of people have heard this story already, but through an extraterrestrial experience that I had, which to me was honestly one of the most vivid and particular things that has ever occurred in my life. But I believe it was around December 30th or just before of 2017, right around the 30th in 2017 of December. I was working at that psychic shop that I mentioned. And I was taking a break from lunch and I was just kind of bored. And it was cool because I could do a meditation on my break. And I sat there and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do a meditation. And I just closed my eyes and leaned back in this chair. And within moments, I was in another place. I mean, it was as if I was I closed my eyes and I was standing outside and I looked down at the earth and it was very brown and there was a weird smell in the air. And I looked in front of me and there was 3 very tall, black, dark, pitch black skinned men. I think one of them had reversed joints in his arms, which was weird. His arms and legs were reversed. They had a different joint structure and they were doing this dance. They were looking at me and doing this.
That's so creepy.
Oh no, it was really, really weird. And what happened was I just stood there and I was like, okay, what is this? And they came toward me and the first one in the line put out his hand and went, and he blew some sort of dust on my body. And in that moment, I think it was probably the other 2 beings, they took their hands and they built a wall over me like this, from head to toe, from all the way from my feet. They encased my body with their hands. And within that moment, I appeared in another place, like in an indoor dwelling. If I were to imagine, I would say it looked like Africa. I guess I've never been to Africa, but I was like, in hindsight, I'm like, it looked like Africa. I was inside some sort of a hut or a small building, and to my right. And the fun thing is, if anyone wants to get the telepathic version, you can watch my left eye. But to my right was a child version of these beings laying on a stone bed, or like this tablet, this thing laying to my right. As I looked over at this child, I realized they had a crack in their head, like a glowing crack, which was all, it was like pulsating in this weird way. And I just remember looking at it, and in my mind, I was like, what am I doing? Why am I here? What is this? And I watched myself. It's important to mention this because it was not a thing I chose to do. I watched myself walk over to this being. I put my hand on their head and I began to move my hand out. And it was like this glowing mass of energy came out of their body. And I held it up toward the ceiling and it vanished. And in that moment, a sound came out. I have to admit, I do not know if I created the sound. I don't know if the sound was created by the interaction. I don't know if it was those beings, but it was a tone. And it was this thing, this sound that happened. And so, there was a couple other things that occurred after that. I could go on a long rant about it, but within a couple of days of that experience, I was working in that very same shop, in that very same room, and people would come in and they'd be like, I have an entity, I have an implant, and whatever the thing was. And I realized that on that day, I put my hand on that person's head and I moved energy out and I went, ooh.
And you pulled it out.
I created this sound. And so ever since then, honestly, it's a thing that I've been doing. And I will pause after this. I know I'm on a long rant here, but I have to admit the work that I do, the way that I use scalar toning was 100% inspired by an extraterrestrial experience. It was not a thing that was given to me. It was not a thing that I invented. To be honest with you, it was something that I mimicked. I copied them. Yeah. I did the same exact thing.
Yeah, you hear that all the time. So, but when that happens, right, you sit there in front of that shop and I can actually see it. I even know, is there a green chair?
Whoa. Either green or sort of darkish brown. Yes.
Yeah, it had a very, there's even a bit of a Mexican vibe, I feel.
Whoa. Okay, you're good. You're on it. Cool.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I can actually literally see where you sat. That's what I meant, right? And nice. I mean, oh wow. I can see the door and it's really cozy kind of looking.
Very small. Yep. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Good job.
The door is reddish brown.
Brown, yes. Oh my God. Okay, you got it.
Oh my God.
Got it.
You see, I'm just there. I'm there. When you talk, I can see it. And when you then went to that vision, whatever you saw, I was there and I can see that man. And I can see that you were indeed in Africa because I know what Africa looks like. Never been there, but I just know because, you just, well, because we learn at school a lot about the rest of the world. But anyway, yeah, that was Africa. And I kind of have a feeling even where it was in Africa. I'm on a roll now.
Oh, really? Where do you think it was? Go ahead.
Well, it's God, it's also famous for where these extraterrestrials are, and it's I can't remember the name, but I can see it, and it's really shitty if you can't, call it by name, but I can see it. And this is what happens all the time. And I'm freaking blown away every time. And I didn't even dare telling you because I saw that chair. I saw you sitting there. I see the whole, it was really cozy looking, really cute.
Very small. And I'll be honest with you, it was really dumpy and kind of dirty. It was not a good place. It was not a good place. It was not a high vibrational location on any level. But,
well, in fact, I felt that I didn't want to look further because everything I looked around would ruin my vision of that little shop there.
Oh man, that is more right than you have any idea. That is literally what it was. It was like, it looks really cool when you walk in and then you look at everything and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. You want to stay in that bubble, right? From that shop.
Oh, totally. Yep.
So I saw you sitting there and it's a bit in the shadow, but there was a sunlight. And so you were in that meditation and then that happened. But now my question to you is, so then what happens in the meeting? How long does that take? And I guess, how does that work? I mean,
Good
actually,
question.
while I'm at it, because Leyland asked the question, can Matthew elaborate on his knowledge of astral plane experiences and physical overlays? So I guess we're getting to that same,
Totally.
right?
Yeah,
Coincidences.
real quickly, I think there was somewhat of a question before the astral stuff and the non-physical overlays. Or maybe there wasn't, or maybe there's a
Well,
thing that
yeah, my
yeah.
question, you mean? Well, actually, I think it is related to that question because the moment that you are in that meditation and then you go out. So I wonder, are you going out of your body or is there something else happening? So that's kind
Yeah,
of my
that's a good.
question. What
So
happened?
I believe what happened in that moment, whether it was Africa or another planet, to me that was one of the most vivid and deliberate out of body experiences I have ever had. Strangely enough, after that experience, I had a number of other ones, which I have not really been. I'm not one of those people that can just pop out of the body. A lot of people can. Sometimes I've been able to do it, but there have been many others. But I would say the experience of out of body travel is one of the fundamental aspects of living as a human being. It's one of those things that you will learn to do by hearing other people talk about it and by allowing yourself to dream and resonate and imagine that process. Now, for me, when I look back on that journey, and it could have been Africa, I sort of felt like I was on another
No, it
planet.
was, but it was not in this time.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I think that it was, on some other planet or some other timeline,
I
but it
feel it
was
was in the
definitely.
future.
It probably was. To be honest with you, I think that it took place within probably a few seconds, which is
But when
really
you
interesting. Oh,
described
good. Mhm.
that with his reversed limbs, I mean, that looked really creepy.
It is. It was
Really
actually very
creepy.
weird. One of them had hands. Well, honestly, I guess I'll just go there. One of them looked like it was part mantis, and the other two, I think there might have been others, but they were doing a particular type of dance. Lo and behold, we found out that year one of the famous secret space program cult like aficionados was talking about the same beings. It really helped me figure out like, whoa, that was a real experience. And so there's other people that have had experience with them, but I believe that took place in about, maybe just a few seconds on, I think it was like a Tuesday afternoon or whatever it was. And it was probably one of the most vivid out of body experiences for me. Just to wrap up on that whole thing, I think one of the reasons why I am doing what I'm doing now is because of that experience, because at the end of it, before, and I'll be honest, it wasn't a thing where they sent me home. My human mind kicked in and I started asking questions and I started going, what is this? What am I doing? Where are we going? And got pulled
Oh,
out of it.
wow.
But prior to that happening, when I came out of that scene with that child, it was like I was immediately transported back to this outdoor area, and those men were doing this dance. They were still moving, and what they did is they created somehow a ball of light in their hands, and it was like they were tossing it to each other. There was three, and they were like tossing it. And
You
this
know
was
what I think
go
of?
ahead, yeah.
Break dance, because it seems really funny how
It was
they,
really weird. I could almost mimic the dance. It was so comical and weird, but they were like stamping
yes.
their feet and like boom, 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 moving this
Oh
thing
my,
around. And when I actually looked at them, and this was when the human version of Matthew kicked in, and I was like, what am I doing? They looked at me with this ball of light and they went, they threw it at me and it went inside my body. And within that moment, I saw what was like a DNA helix, or in hindsight, I believe it was a DNA helix. In the moment, I was like, but I watched that sort of ball enter my body, and it was like all these little orbs showed up. It was like went ding, 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 and all these little orbs lined this DNA structure. And within that moment, human body kicks in, and I just left. I pulled out of it. But they have come back many times in my life.
so I would say that you freak out, right? But you didn't at first, because the way that you talk is like, yeah. And then I just went, I saw these weird black, figures.
Yeah.
But could it be that that same situation actually, how do you say that in English? Um, it influences your mood or your, so that you're not scared. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, there was really no time or moment to be scared. And I
Right.
have had this experience with other beings. It's like an exchange or a process or some sort of interaction of energy will take place, And as long as I allow it to occur, there's a natural transaction. But what I have found is that maybe this is my shortcoming, because, I'm not like I'm not always leaving the body and going on astral journeys to the, the LOC on the moon or whatever it is. What I found was that in each one of those experiences, the second I started going, what am I doing? What is this? Why are you here? It was like some door started to close and I would pull out of it. And so, yeah, I don't know if that even adds on to what you were saying, but
yeah, you said about black, right? And I feel it's like a leathery, real leather black, but
very
not,
much.
yeah, but very, and not shiny leather, but rather, right, a bit.
Very, very dark skinned beings. They were
Yes.
wearing headdresses. They had like this sort of structure on their head, which honestly, after that moment, I did actually kind of freak out. And I just went on this quest to figure out who they were. And within moments, just sitting there in that room, I found the Dogon tribe of Africa, and they were so close.
Those are the ones I was talking about. Yeah. Those are the ones that was the name I was searching for, the Dogon.
Yeah, I think that's who it was, but I'll be honest with you. I think this was probably, and this is a speculation, so everyone's going to get their own version, but I believe it was possibly one of the races that influenced the Dogon tribe here on Earth. Yes. Because one of the things that was very particular about these beings is that they had reversed knees. That was one thing. Like their legs were reversed. The legs would bend from the back instead of the front.
Creepy.
It's a very interesting thing, but other people have talked about them. I think that one of the assignments I have right now is to continue to talk about it, because what I've found is that when we do, other people have those experiences. Other people will start to join with them. And what I believe their purpose is right now is to help people understand the movement of non-physical multidimensional energy and the manners of traveling our universe that are completely non-technological. There is no physical technology involved in what they do. And I feel confident in saying that now at this stage of the journey, having had a few experiences with these beings. Everything they do is based off of moving, altering, sending, and receiving vital energy from the human body. And what appears to be an ability to move our consciousness through these constantly existing and available wormholes or filaments of light energy that will exist in our universe. And so I believe they travel this universe seeking other people who are able to receive them, who are willing to receive it. And those who are, and I know this is a loaded statement, those who are remaining in an organic state of being, meaning those who have not taken the sort of AI mark of the beast, or who have not, given their consciousness over to that sort of AI framework. I believe that the goal of these beings is to keep us in touch with our organic origins and roots of energy. And so
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So back to Leyland's question. My God, I can talk for hours, and we're already past an hour. But anyway, can Matthew elaborate on his knowledge of astral plane experiences and physical overlays?
Well, I would need to know specifically what people mean by physical overlays, but I can tell you about the astral plane, or what many of us call the astral plane, is going to be a different version for me as it is for you. For many of us, we go through what we would call series of waiting rooms or connections and nodal points as we start moving outside of the body. I can tell you that every single living person, as we go through the dreaming process each night, will go through a version of that. Does that mean that every one of our dreams is an astral plane experience? Not necessarily. The human body has an amazing tendency to fire off strange consciousness recordings in the body. So not every single dream or every single journey is an out-of-body experience. But one of the things you can do is start to work with your crown chakra. You can start to work with the Earth Star chakra, which is down at the bottom of your feet. And just those two nodal points together on the human body, it's sort of like freeing up your connection points and allowing you to flow in and outward on a different level. And so I like to think that the process of astral travel is a thing that is native to every living being. Now, does that mean we always go and, meet extraterrestrials in those places? Honestly, we will have a number of experiences Some of them will be very notable and formidable. Others will just be, you know, there I was in the astral plane and this weird occurrence happened. But I believe that we're entering the stage on Earth in which one of the best things we can do to facilitate that process for other people is talk about it and to freely admit that every single person, myself included, and I've actually gone through processes where I've worked with people who specifically train you to move outside the body. There are many of them in the world, but there are people who literally will train you to do that. I believe that it is native to every human being, but for a lot of us, it's a thing that we'll need to hear about and learn about it and start to practice in our own way. One of the other things we do know conclusively now that will slow down your ability to leave this physical container is heavy metal particulate matter and heavy metal buildup within the body, which anyone that goes outside right now when chemtrails are blowing, you're going to get a bunch of it. You're just going to get it. And the reason why that occurs, well, there's many reasons. Thank you. Someone on my left is like, there's many reasons, but one of the reasons that occurs is to weigh down the human astral body, to make it anchored and to be held in a static position. And over a period of time, this ring develops around the upper chakras, very much like a literal ring of energy that will encircle the temporal lobe. It will interact with a couple other places known as Wernicke's region, and I think Broca's region in the brain, which has to do with language communication. The way we communicate, the way we receive words. Over time, this band of energy builds up like a heavy weight around your upper chakras. And that's when people can start to experience a whole different layer of tampering or interference. And the whole idea is that it's kind of putting this sort of blinder or these weights or these limitations on the human body so that you will not be able to do that. And so for people that want to begin the process of astral travel, you really need to clear the body of heavy metals, do a very dedicated detox. There's a lot of parasite activity that will take place and will weigh down the intestines that can fundamentally alter what I call the emotional pH balance in the body, which will lead to just really interesting states in which you will not be able to leave. You'll be kind of bound to the human shell. And so anyway, watch out. I'll go on a long rant.
Actually, that's where I started as well in that same year when I met Eric Rains, and I felt that, but I need to do another one because, you know, you need to at least maintain it, or at least do every year one of those detoxes, because you know it's very important to pay attention to the body, right? And but
one other thing really quickly, like just because I know people are going to want to hear, sorry to awkwardly interrupt, I know we've been doing this for a while, but for those of you guys that are listening and you want to start kind of experimenting with your ability to leave the body, breath work is one of the most important and useful things, specifically the yogic breath of fire practice. For those of you guys that are familiar with breath of fire or Wim Hof breathing, will literally begin the movement of energy in your body. And I've had a number of experiences where you literally pop out of the crown, you will pop out of your body. And so for those of you guys that are interested, try breath work. There you go. Anyway.
Yeah, Wim Hof, well, he lives here, but
go ahead.
Yeah, he's busy with I don't know, all sorts of things with BBC and stuff because he wants to wake up the whole world. So
being a celebrity now, it's okay.
Well, not really. He doesn't come across as a celebrity at all. He's just like, you know, a normal guy, but he seems just like a cool guy. It's interesting how broad his you know, the people that he knows are and that know him, but he's just a simple Dutch guy, really. And you know, we don't look at celebrities or like that at people at all. That's why many very famous American celebrities would come here and have a house, because nobody gives a shit.
Right? I'm the same way. I'm like, I don't care. Where are you from? Who are you?
Yeah, you're still human, right? We're very down to earth here, so that's why they like it. They're not followed around like idiots, right? So but anyway, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have you back actually, because I'm really not done with you. But we have also Journey to Truth that started.
Oh yeah, they're going already. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, and I didn't want to, you know, and many people want to go there anyway. But I mean, we definitely have to do this again. Totally. Also, I did an affiliate with 90 Degree Turns that do Merlin's Lab, which is the organ pyramids. So if anybody's interested, you get 10% off. Wanted to mention that, forgot about that in the beginning, but it's in the description. I also will put all your links in the description because I saw I didn't do that well. And And yeah, I actually thank you so much,
Thank
because
you.
my God, the time flew, and
Oh, it
I
did,
have
huh?
still
Sorry.
100,000 questions, and clearly the chat loved it too. And maybe next time we do a bit longer so people get to
Totally.
actually, you know,
Anytime you're ready. I'm going to awkwardly say one thing before we go. For
go
those of
ahead.
you guys that are out there listening, we're doing a monthly event on Saturday and 2 days from now in the Patreon group that we run called the Blue Flame Collective on Patreon. And what we're going to be doing is an energy clearing on Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern, in which we're going to be opening up some of these channels. So if anyone wants to join us, check us out on Patreon at Blue Flame Collective, and you can join the group that we're doing on Saturday afternoon. And who knows, every now and then somebody will pop out and experience something. So yeah, there we
Cool.
go.
I will put your Patreon as well in the description after you give it to me.
Totally.
And thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for all your knowledge, and still a lot of knowledge to come. But obviously, people can also find you on your website and on YouTube. So yeah, thank you everybody. I don't know if I'm going to be here on Monday. I don't have a guest yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see
Maybe
what
you
happens.
want to come back.
I'm like universally available. I only show up when summoned. So it's like I've learned not to ask anyone anymore. I just wait to get summoned, and every now and then it'll happen. So yeah,
Well, there
send
you
me out.
go.
I'll appear.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Go check out Journey to Trade. Bye, all.